wouldn't take it, but you're always on call when you're a teacher. For special needs kids who speak Spanish.
Wow, you must be so excited for summer.
I know I am.
Me too, but I don't go to the beach. I only go to black-owned pools.
Okay, well, we're Polly.
Excuse me.
How's the food, folks? Y'all need anything?
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, my shift is ending, and I gotta get home to my son, who I adopted from China. Come, Aurelius!
Oh, that's what that sound was. Now it makes sense. Hello, everybody. I'm Todd Bruff, and welcome to Love Match, the game where one lonely gal has her pick of 3 eligible guys. Janie from Syracuse, are you excited to put some mingle in that single?
You know it. I'm Janie from Syracuse, and I'm going to put some mingle in that single.
Yeah, I just said all that. Let's meet the bachelors. Now, remember, Janie, even though I can see the guys, you won't until you've made your choice. First up, we got Alan from Tempe.
Hi, my name's Alan, but I hope to be Fallon in love.
We also got Dan from Ridgefield.
Hey, I'm Dan, and Dan, girl, let's do this.
All right. And finally, Gene from Seattle.
Hi, I'm Gene. I can't think of a pun for my name. I'm just Gene.
Thank you. Gene.
Well, okay, I'll start with Dan. Dan, what do you look for in a woman?
Well, the right answer is personality, but the real answer is butt.
Okay, what about you, Gene?
You know, I spent a lot of my life trying to figure out women, and then one day I said, maybe it's time to figure out Gene. So I'm looking for a woman to go on that journey with me.
Wow, I mean, that's honestly so refreshing.
Really?
Yeah, Gene. Yeah, really.
I feel like I have to tell you, he's dressed like Indiana Jones.
What?
I'm not supposed to say what they look like, but yeah, he's in head-to-toe Indiana Jones.
What do you mean?
Yeah, what is Indiana Jones?
What is Indiana Jones?
Yeah, I don't know what Indiana Jones is.
Well, no, Gene, I think you do. I think you do because you're dressed like that. You're dressed like Indiana Jones.
I'm dressed like Gene. I don't know what Indiana Jones is. Is it a brand? Is it like Tommy Hilfiger?
What? No.
Then I don't know what Indiana Jones is.
No, you do know what it is. You do, because you have a whip.
He does have a whip. I haven't had a question yet. What can we do about that?
This isn't mine. Your people gave this to me. I thought you pushed it on the end to buzz in or something.
No, you didn't. You didn't think it was to buzz in. It's a whip.
Hey, it's okay. I don't care how he's dressed. He sounds nice.
I am nice.
Well, he's not nice. He's not, because he's lying about not knowing he's dressed like Indiana Jones. He's in a khaki shirt with one sleeve ripped off, and he's wearing an adventure hat.
You're hurting my feelings. And your producer just said wear what you'd wear on a date. I'm sorry if it looks like Indiana Jones, whoever he may be.
Hey, was Indiana Jones from Indiana?
No, that was his nickname.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Did you just say a correct fact about Indiana Jones?
It's a game show. I was guessing.
Okay, can we just get back to the game? Gene, what's your biggest fear?
Gotta say snakes.
You're starting to piss me off, buddy.
Yeah? Say that to my whip.
Okay, boys, no, come on.
Look, just go look at him. You'll see.
No, that's not fair. And I must say that if you keep telling her what he looks like, you have to say what we look like as well.
Okay, you look like a 12-year-old, and you look like Jane Lynch. Thank you very much. This is the worst episode of this show we've ever done.
Tell that to my whip!
Just shut it. Shut his door.
No!
I'm sorry about that, Janie. Let's just start over. We're going to get all new guys starting right now. Let's meet our new Bachelor number 1.
Hi, I'm Steven, and I'm looking for love.
Where are they coming from? Love Match will be right back.
Athens, circa 500 BC, the ancient Greeks created a new form of entertainment known as theater, meaning, at some point, there had to have been the first play.
All right this way. Here you are. We're here. The show will begin shortly.
Climesticles! It's good to see you.
You as well as Zidios? Tell me, do you know what we're gathered here to see?
All I've been told is that it's a new form of entertainment called a play.
Yes, the poster simply said, tonight at 7 p.m., come watch a book.
Huh. Curious.
Ah, something appears to be happening.
I am Dematros.
Hello?
I am but a simple farmer.
I am a cloth merchant.
Why are you up there? Come, sit with us.
Ah, my chickens. Time to feed. Eat your grain, chickens.
I see no chickens.
Friend, it seems your chickens have run off.
Please sit down.
Why? Look, just yonder. The king's general approaches the palace.
There's no general back there.
Why do you lie to us, sir?
What is this?
I sense grave events will befall our king.
Goodbye.
I, Phobos, have returned from the Isles.
Hello, I am Clytemnesticles.
I am Philomene. Welcome.
Someone fetch the king. Tell him his loyal friend and general brings distressing news.
I will go.
Oh, how I am weak with hunger. My head aches, and my stomach roars with the want of food.
Oh, here's some bread, please. And sit down.
Sir,
What?
go back to your seat.
He is starving. His head aches.
Greetings, all.
I know this man. He is my neighbor, Tritus.
It is I, King Byzantus.
Liar! Tritus, you are no king. He is an olive oil merchant.
My king, Isle dwellers laid siege to our caravan and captured your wife, the dear Queen Celestra.
Liar! I saw his wife this morn.
Please stop interrupting.
But he's lying to us. Go away. I don't like you.
Come, Phobos. We shall set sail this moment and rescue her.
The air is oddly still this eve.
So, did you find your chickens?
Days have passed since the king's ship left harbor. I pray the gods keep them safe.
Thank Zeus, the ship is held well. Look, the army of Isles waits for us.
Again, he tricks us.
I will not wait to strike. I know of your plot to murder me and steal both my wife and my crown.
How did you discover my secrets?
That is between me and the gods, whom you soon shall meet.
Oh!
Tritus, why? Why?
Why were we brought here? To watch someone be murdered? Oh my God, it's pretend. See? A he's not really dead. Do you understand?
No!
So we act out a story and you watch and pretend it's real. Can you do that?
That sounds difficult. I don't think I can.
Well, the next scene there's nudity.
Oh, then on with the show. I love the theater.
Ladies and gentlemen, Elton John and Brandy Carlisle.
Another ordinary party.
Ordinary? That's for the other guy. Don't you try coming at us with mild. Mild? I ain't no child. I need it wild. And when it's time to deploy some major snacking,
Only flaming hot will do.
flavor can really mess up your butt. Inflammation, swelling, painful irritation. You need fast relief. You need the cooling touch of Preparation 8.
Not this dog. I need to kick it to the extreme. What? With new flaming hot Preparation 8s.
Where did you get that? Oh my God, what is that?
20,000 Scoville units spray up, densely packed into an easy-to-apply dark red cream.
Oh, good Lord, why on earth would you put that on your anus?
You need to fight fire with fire, Gene.
No, you don't. Stuart, that is a horrible idea, man.
Ah, dog, it's science. Most creams shrink the irritation with a cooling effect. But you need to exhaust the fuel, Chief. Only Flamin' Hot packs the inflammatory punch to achieve...
Oh, Stuart, come on, you're scaring me, man.
Help me spread it around.
I'm not touching that.
I'll just be one more minute, please. Wow.
Hang in there, Stuart. I'm gonna call 911.
This was a mistake.
Flamin' Hot Preparation H, now in chili lime habanero and Carolina Reaper.
Francesca, I had such a great time tonight.
Me too. It was so cool when you almost caught that shrimp in your mouth.
Yeah, and I almost had it too. Anyway, Francesca, I have to say I really like you, and I'm feeling really good about us.
Wow, Greg, I feel the same way.
I think it's time to take it to connect physically and to take it to the next level.
I do too.
When a man and a woman put on silk pajamas and finally ready for a bang-a-rama, together we swim through a sea of romance and join our bodies in a sensual dance. Because we're making love. First we do things to Sunday we host our pop-up jam. So if you're a musician, come on up. All instruments, all skill levels are welcome to jam. Also at 1 o'clock, there is the Diabetes Awareness Wet T-shirt contest. Till then, let's jam. This one's for all my 90s babies. 2, 3, 4. She's a good girl. Loves her mama. Loves Jesus. And her boyfriend too. Uh-oh, look at this. We got our first jammer. Nice, a bass. Ask and ye shall receive. Am I right? What's your name, my man? Trish. You know this one, Trish. Dive in. 2, 3, 4. It's a long day living in Reseda. Ooh, that bass feels good. Yeah. Running through the yard. Hey now, what do we have here? No shirt, no shoes, and a bass. Are we dealing with a double bass sandwich? Right on, my man. Also, is that a McDonald's number 2 on your chest?
Yeah, cause I'm loving it.
Right on, bud. 2, 3, 4. I'm a bad boy, cause I don't even miss her. I'm a bad boy for breaking her heart. Wow, now it is an embarrassment of bases.
Woo! I love you, Big Ricky.
Woo, hello. Looks like our sweet jam has summoned a siren. You fresh out of the lake, darling?
Yeah, just killing time before the boom contest.
Did you want me to get you a hot dog?
Oh, you got 4 hot dogs for yourself?
Is that a problem? If you wanted a dog, you should have told me.
You know what? I'm not even hungry. I'm too excited. We can finally start our lives.
Hello. May I kiss you on the mouth?
Well, I don't see why not.
All right.
Hey, buddy. All right, come on. That's time's up. Okay, knock it off. For real, wrap it up, bucko. Seriously, I'm getting mad, guy. 2 more seconds and then that's it. 1.
Hey, man. Got that 5th hot dog for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had to go to the other cart to get it.
Thank you. Why are you still here?
Oh, isn't this the line to kiss the nurse?
No! Get out of here, bozo! Hey, punk. That's my girl you just kissed.
Yeah, I know.
What the hell is going on, babe?
Honey, they're just happy to be home. It was a long war.
Yeah, you don't think I know that? I served my country. Maybe not a guy with a gun, but I served.
I know you did, sweetheart.
When Uncle Sam put out the call for able-bodied illustrators to draw racist propaganda cartoons of the Japanese emperor, I was first in line.
And I am so proud of you, honey.
You know how many people joined the army because of my racist cartoons?
Millions.
Hundreds of millions. So, I guess what? I think I've earned myself a little treat, too.
Oh, Arthur, don't.
Too late. Hello, doll. Pack her up.
Go away, pervert!
Oh, you could have just said no. Jeez. Okay, now you're the kisser? Oh, well played. Well, you know what? We're breaking up. Not forever, just for now, until this kiss ends, because when it does, you're with me.
Wow! Welcome home to me, I guess.
Hey, jag off. That's my girl.
Wait, are you Arthur Donnelly, the cartoonist?
That's right.
Your cartoons just wow.
Thank you.
I mean, even for wartime, they were really, really, really racist.
Thank you so much.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Ah, you're too kind.
You are a sick man.
Always nice to meet a fan.
Goodbye, miss. Oh!
Hey, how about you dip your girl and I'll take a photo?
That's more like it. Come here, darling. I'm gonna give you a smoocher roll. Oh, my dogs!
This island is our home.
This island is our home. Blessed by Jah, so much beauty to behold.
But when there is war and struggle and pain,
How do we fill our souls with joy again?
we look and we laugh at God kid on vacation.
The family
Kid on vacation. God kid on vacation.
just want to
God kid on vacation. We know we're bathing suit, we wear big black jeans. He wear no sandal, he got your combat boots on your beach.
He no want no jet ski, he no swim with no dolphin. He wants sit in the hotel lobby, look at photos of his big bone girlfriend.
God kid on vacation.
Hiding from the sun,
Kid on vacation.
watch his hair dye run.
Kid on vacation.
He don't have no
God kid on vacation. When I was a young boy, my parents took me down to Jamaica for my high school spring break. They said come to the pool, but I stayed in the room with my graphic novels so I could masturbate. 'Cause I'm a goth kid on vacation. Goth kid on vacation.
Hey, so, what's the plan for this afternoon, gang? What does everybody want to do?
Go home.
Maybe snorkeling?
Maybe go home.
Snorkeling sounds great.
Going home sounds great.
Dexter, maybe you should just go to the beach and write your poetry. Would that make you happy?
Happiness is a disease.
It's working,
Before times, two great armies battled.
Donald Trump showed the tariffs the other day. I'll show you the chart again. He showed the chart, okay? And they specifically had this part where it said tariffs charged to the USA. And I spoke about this on the podcast, spoke about it yesterday, but I just want it super clear where this number comes from because it is not tariffs charged to the USA. This title is incorrect, okay? It's just not true. The calculation has been figured out. Like, people have found it and it matches one-to-one with all of these. It's this, okay? They take the amount we import from that country, so let's say it's Vietnam. The amount we import from them minus the amount we export to them divided by the amount we import. What this means is we just buy more from Vietnam than they buy from us. That's all it's saying. What was extra funny, though, which is why it's so funny to me, because that is the formula. I'm not changing, I'm not exaggerating. That is the exact formula they use to get every one of these numbers. It's not based on what tariffs they actually have. It's just based on who buys more from who. Understandable, that's not a tariff. That doesn't make any sense. For example, Japan has extremely low tariffs on American goods. They just buy more, or we buy more of their stuff than they buy of us. So they say they have a high tariff on us. They don't. Our goods can sell there at cost. We can sell cars in Japan. I understand that's very silly. Now, what they did, though, when people pointed this out, was one of the people behind it got kind of huffy on Twitter and said, no, there's a more complicated formula here. And they post this fancy-looking formula that I have isolated here. Okay, now I'm going to copy this formula into Paint, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about it. So this is the formula. So what do you think X1 is in this chart? Well, it turns out this is exports. What do you think MI is in this chart? Turns out that's imports. That's imports. So what are these fancy things? Well, it turns out this, I don't even know the Greek symbol for it is, but this stands for 4. This is epsilon, and this one's, what is this? Phi? Phi stands for 1/4. So these two cancel each other out, and it's exports minus imports divided by imports. I am not kidding. Imports times 1. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not trying to... This is actually this formula. This is a joke. This is a fucking joke. That is the formula. It's export minus import divided by import. It has nothing at all to do with the tariffs they're charging us, which is leading to these wildly out of whack situations. I mean, with us putting 40% tariffs on the Falkland Islands and shit, it doesn't make any sense. Just because we buy squid from them, they don't buy anything from us. Because there's only 3,000 people there. What are they going to buy from us? Boeing jets? And to my understanding, and this is not confirmed, my understanding is they presented a couple options to Trump himself of how they wanted to structure the tariffs. And one of them, they had done their research on basically what tariffs were actually being charged on us and what those reciprocal tariffs could be. And he picked this one. This is the one he wanted. And this is the most nonsensical one. I don't know, dude. I don't know. I have no steel man for this. It's a really foolish decision. And I already made a video on this, so I don't need to continue. But I just want that to be fully understood. That is the actual formula. I'm not fooling. I'm not pulling a trick here. This is the formula from the website. This is the formula they talked about on Twitter. This is their formula. You can go. They haven't even taken this down, and it's so embarrassing. This is the office of the United States. This is like Lutnick's office. Look, you can see it right here. Look, Sigma set at 4. Phi set at 0.25. You can see it right here. You can see it right here, dude. I'm not f***ing with you. It literally is what I said. I'm not f***ing with you. That's crazy. They cancel each other out. It might as well not exist. It's just making the formula look fancier, so you're not as embarrassed about it getting figured out. Anyway, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm gonna use a gaming example here because Cadrill's watching. Cadrill, if you're watching this clip, Cadrill. If you're watching this clip, I'm going to use a League of Legends example, okay? Imagine you're on a League of Legends team with somebody. You're the top laner, right? And you're talking to the mid laner. And the mid laner is like, I want to play Fizz, okay? And you're like, Fizz is not in meta. Fizz is not a good champion. You know, there's better champions you could pick. I don't like the choice of Fizz. But the guy goes ahead and plays Fizz anyway. Now, if this person is, let's say, a top 5 mid laner in the world, if they're really good at Fizz, at least there's a point. If the execution is good, maybe strategically it's not great, but at least they're playing good enough that you have a chance. But if they're picking Fizz and they're bronze, it doesn't even matter. Like, whether or not their ideals are right, they'll never be able to prove if Fizz is good or not because the execution is so bad. That is what I don't agree with tariffs ideologically. But if Trump wants to pick Fizz, you know, I'm all for non-standard picks. If he wants to pick Fizz, you have to execute it at a world-class level to even have a chance. You have to be challenger level. You can't be iron out there doing everything willy-nilly and wrong, because then it doesn't matter if your pick's good or not. You'll never win anyway. That is what I'm trying to make an argument on not just ideological differences, but executional differences. You have to have competence. You have to be, you know, smart and sharp and targeted and have a scalpel instead of a hatchet and understand it. If not, it doesn't matter what your argument is. It doesn't matter that you think Fizz is actually good because you're not good enough to use him. It's a skill gap. It's a skill gap more than anything. We're just getting skill gapped by like China, who's like the adult in the room. You know, and I think a great example of that, I wonder if I can explain this better. Let me see if I can show you a perfect example of that. This is China's Minister of Education. Let's look at his background. Computer science master's degree, doctorate, attended Columbia University, Chinese Academy of Sciences. He got the Legion of Honor by the French government. This is long history of education. Now, whether or not his tactics are 100% correct, it seems like he's a serious, intelligent man who's like working his hardest to what he thinks is the right idea for his country. Maybe I disagree with how they handle education in China. I mean, it's burning people. There's like a high suicide rate among kids because there's such competition. But whatever, it's a plan. This is our Secretary of Education. She's Vince McMahon's wife. The World Wrestling Entertainment. She initiated the company's civic program, Smack Down Your Vote. She had a feud with her husband that culminated at WrestleMania X7. Even if her idea is better, which I don't think it is, but if it was, her execution is not there. She's not a competent enough person, a focused enough person, a background enough person to make this work. That is my argument, is that we can't even get to the level of disagreeing on ideologic stuff when there's not a competence, when there's not a seriousness. Don't shit on wrestling. Is that what I was doing? All the laid back. Is that what I was doing? Or was I possibly saying that being the head of the WWE's wife does not qualify you to run education for a 300 million person country? Turning into a corporatist. And you know what? Maybe it does qualify you. It's only because my vote was for The Undertaker. I voted for The Undertaker, okay? I thought he would fix the schooling system from the top ropes, dude. As a kid, I was pissed when The Undertaker didn't get his undefeated streak. Well, that's why we owe him as a country one chance to run shit. We owe him as a country he got screwed on this undefeated streak, and so let's put him in charge of some shit. One more chance. What is this Howard Lutnick clip? Bro, I'm getting sick of Howard Lutnick, I'll tell you that.
They won't take lobster in Europe or the UK. I mean, why won't they take American lobster?
Now. They do. They didn't for a while, but now they do.
They don't, because Downing Street said they're going to start, if they change their trade policy, they're going to start having...
Let me just follow up with you. By the way, in August of 2020, the EU did agree to eliminate tariffs on fresh and frozen American lobsters. Just quick fact check that fact. But hold on.
They won't take lobster.
I saw him lie in real time because one of the first speeches he gave, this is a while ago, where he talked about Japanese tariffs on American cars. He's like, American cars can't compete in Japan because there's a tariff. And I was like, oh, that sounds weird. Why would they do that? They already have their own car companies. They're successful. And then I looked into it, and it was a lie. It was just not true. They don't have any tariffs on American cars. They just don't buy them. The only brand they like is Jeep. They buy Jeeps. Japan needs to buy Ford F-150s that are larger than the average Japanese living room. Why would the size of your living room matter for the size of your car? You just park outside. So this guy, Geiger Capital, said this in 24. No one other than fairly stupid partisans on the left thinks Trump is going to implement 20% tariffs on everything across the board. It aged poorly. It is a real tweet, and he recently said, I won't delete it, but I was wrong, which I think is honorable. I was wrong. He's done it. And then he spent all this time just shitting on these tariffs. Just absolutely fucking shitting on them. I'm not going to say based because this guy still like supports GME and shit. Stupid finance shit, but at the very least didn't fucking backpedal. April 3rd, yesterday, was an equivalent downturn in the stock market to the day of 9/11. It wasn't as bad as COVID or the GFC, a little less than the dot-com crash, but it was the same as 9/11 impact on the market. It was a 9/11 to the market. Hey, Shrug, is it a good or a bad sign that I see more people angry about the Nintendo Switch pre-orders being passed due to tariffs when they were all about the constitutional stuff? It's just called being people. It's not good or bad. It's just human nature. That's just how people work. I don't know. If you stress yourself out about it, you'll be stressed for your whole life, and it will never change. Okay? It is, people are more attentive to the problems that directly affect them, and it will never change, and it's not worth getting stressed over. And honestly, if you want to see yourself as helping, then find a way to frame the problems in ways that directly affect them. Affect. Fuck! I said affect! My point, my nuanced point is now destroyed. I've been destroyed in the marketplace of ideas. I said affect. Hey, I have a thing to say about tariffs specifically. So one thing I think people didn't understand was like, let's say Nintendo wanted to have a higher price to bake in possible tariffs. They wanted to have higher so they could absorb the increased cost from a tariff. People were like, well, that doesn't make sense because if it's $450, will the tariff be higher than if it was? Why don't they make the price lower and then the tariff makes it go up to $450? Why wouldn't you have the price be $400 and then plus $50 tariff and then it's $450 rather than start at $450? And that is because that's a misunderstanding of how tariffs work. Tariffs do not charge you based on the MSRP. This is the MSRP that they charge at the store. Tariffs charge you based on the cost. I think it's cost in CIS value, I think. Let's say it costs $290 to make. That's cost. There's $5 for insurance. That's the I. And there's $5 for shipping. That's the S. And then you get the tariff on the $300. So if it's a 10% tariff, you will pay $30 plus $30. Tariff equals $330 to Nintendo. That's what they have to pay. That's what it costs them to make it and ship it and tariff it. And then they charge $450. Now, realistically, we don't know what it costs to make a Nintendo Switch, but it's something like this. And they baked in the $450 price to assume there's going to be a big tariff. Let's say it's plus, let's say it's 300 again. And Vietnam's tariff is 43%. So what is that? 20 something, 129, 46%, 120. Let's just say 129. 129 is like a realistic amount. So that's 429. And they charge $450. You understand? So they baked in an expensive tariff into the cost so they can keep it this way and not to lower it. I think it's just worth understanding that basically the main thing you have to understand is that tariffs are charged on what it costs to make, not on what you charge for it. So you might charge a high price up front to be protected from having to raise it when you get a tariff. So you're saying cis is their gender? No, that's not what I'm saying. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. That's not a word that I said. Basically, what I'm saying is woke Tendo is trying to fucking tax the cisgender straight men, okay? And that's how you're getting fucked over by woke Tendo. But what's funny is, so, I don't know if it's funny, but Nintendo delayed pre-orders. Because while they did predict there would be some tariffs, I don't think they predicted 43%, 46% on Vietnam, where they're making all their fucking Switches, and so they might still be losing money. I'm like, this calculation is napkin math. We don't know what this actually costs. It could easily be plus 129 or whatever this is. This could be $350 to make a Switch. I don't know what their profit is on a Switch, and so they baked in a little buffer room that might be overblown. They could be losing money on every Switch too. 43% of the cost added as a tariff is huge. That's massive. So they might be launching Switch 2 at a loss or having to anyway. What I think they're doing is they're delaying. Because look, they're not delaying the launch day. They're delaying the pre-orders. Because I think what they're going to try to do is hope that a deal gets made between Vietnam and America and Trump retracts the tariffs. I believe that is what they're hoping. They're hoping by the time they do an order, tariffs won't exist. They're trying to just wait it out. Because it's going to be unpopular so immediately. And Vietnam, again, does not tariff us. Despite what Trump's chart says, Vietnam does not have tariffs on the United States. Or maybe like they have a general purpose tariff on everything for like 9%, but it's not 80% that he said. So, it's just, it's hopefully it gets figured out. So Donald Trump, he put out, let's see if we can find it. I don't want to misrepresent. I literally want to show what it is. This is on his actual account. Okay, he tweeted this.
Crashing the stock market by 20% this month, but he's doing it on purpose. And this is why Warren Buffett just said Trump is making the best economic moves he's seen in over 50 years.
Right, so this is from Trump, and he truthed it. And that first part I saw, I was like already like a little suspicious. So I looked into it, and not only is that not true, but Warren Buffett had to immediately put out a press release saying it is false. And Warren Buffett never, ever gets involved in politics. It's just not true.
Now here's the secret game he's playing, and it could make you rich. So why is he doing this? To push cash into treasuries, which forces the Fed to slash interest rates in May, and those lower rates give the Fed the ability to refinance trillions of debt very inexpensively. Now you're probably wondering, what about his tariffs? Well, I'll tell you, it's a genius play. It actually forces companies to build here to dodge them. It also forces farmers to sell more of their products here in the U.S. to bring grocery prices way down.
That's just not true. I believe he's impoverishing both groups, is what I will say. Honestly, people that own stocks or have 401ks are feeling the pain, but the pain is because of these massive tax increases, which what tariffs are, on the prices of regular goods. So the things you buy are going to get more expensive, and that hits poor people the hardest. The end of cheap goods is like horrendous for their bottom line. So it's really like a group impoverishment.
From back in the 1920s being repeated. Now, insofar as he's using these tariffs to get various strategic things settled, and that he is satisfied with that. But if you set off a worldwide trade...
Like, this is the difference, too. Bro, fuck. I don't know if it was the virus, but my political analysis is on point, okay? Because one of the things that I said, okay, and everybody needs to take this lesson, okay, you can carry this lesson forward in the future, all right? I made this point in multiple people that I debated. Democrats will not do unhinged, crazy shit. They won't do it, and the reason why is because at the end of the day, they don't want the country to self-destruct, okay? It's an actual thing that they actually care about. So when Biden comes up and runs on $15 an hour minimum wage, and it would be ruinous for the country, he's not going to self-destruct the country trying to do it, right? When this is the reason why, and I think I even said this in my Tom Bilyeu debate, the wealth tax or whatever, percentage or whatever bullshit, whatever Kamala was saying, that's never going to happen. Because as soon as she tries to do something like that or mentions it, her econ advisor is going to say shit like, hey, this would be retarded. You're probably going to like self-destruct the economy. Let's not do this stupid shit. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess not, okay? Those people do not exist on the Republican Party. They don't right now. It's a cult. There are no brakes that anybody around this guy is willing to pump.
War. That has a devastating history.
Okay, and of course, Sowell would know better than anyone else, and he happens to be correct. There's also the problem that while the Trump administration can maintain that America is not just about the cheap and plentiful products, it turns out that Americans actually do like affordable and plentiful products. And Jimmy Carter tried this routine as well during his Malay speech. Well, Americans need to spiritually buck up, even if things are worse for them economically. It turns out this is not a popular selling point. Here's Harry Anton on CNN explaining.
It's the American people who are the naysayers, oppose new tariffs on other countries. All goods, look at this. 56% of Americans oppose new tariffs on all goods. How about cars in particular? 56% of Americans.
And these numbers are probably scary still, because I'm willing to bet if they broke it down by party, it would be like 85% of Democrats and like 30% of Republicans. This cult shit is a problem. It's a problem.
Oppose new tariffs on imported cars and car parts. Look, the bottom line is the American people oppose. No. They do not want new tariffs. I looked at a ton of polling. It's really hard to find any in which you find folks supporting new tariffs.
And that is going to be only more true if the economy actually declines on the back of all of this. The stock market, and then more broadly, the economy, employment, investment opportunity, problems with mortgages. One of the big problems here is that, of course, there's a lot of corporate debt in America. Companies operate on marginal growth. And if that marginal growth goes away and that corporate debt gets called in, you got a problem on your hands. And again, this is being created by the Trump administration. As I mentioned yesterday, I mean, I know business people who import products. These are domestic American businesses with American employees, and they have to import their inputs to their products. And they're getting smashed by these tariffs. So President Trump, one of the big problems here also is the level of uncertainty. There's a huge level of uncertainty as to what exactly President Trump is trying to accomplish. The uncertainty is its own form of risk. Because if the markets don't know what President Trump is doing, if they don't have a perspective on how long this is going to last, what the end goal looks like, people start pulling their money. People say, listen, I know I'm not supposed to sell into a dip, but I'd rather sell into a dip and have at least some dry powder in the back room than ride this thing out. So President Trump, the White House, they have put out a set of talking points to their allies that was obtained by Politico. And here are their talking points. And again, the problem with some of the talking points is that they're mutually exclusive. President Trump is revolutionizing the global trade order to put the American economy, the American worker, and our national security first. Okay, so, again, I don't know what revolutionizing the trade order looks like. What is the end goal of the trade order? If the end goal is everybody goes to zero on their tariffs and non-tariff barriers, sounds great.
Knows.
But totally unclear if that's the case at this point, because again, there are countries that
also,
have...
you. He said he was going to do this the entire fucking time. He always said he was going to do this. He always said he was going to do it, and then he came into office, and he did it. None of this should be a surprise. None of this should be a surprise.
Extraordinarily low tariffs with the United States, who just got smashed by these tariff rates. The White House continues, foreign trade and economic practice have created a national emergency, and President Trump's order imposes responsive tariffs to strengthen the international economic position of the United States and protect American workers. Now, again, it is not true that foreign trade has created a quote-unquote national emergency by any technical terminology with regard to a national emergency. You can say that you don't like the trade balance. You can say that you don't like that certain industries have been offshored and you want to reshore them for national security reasons or whatever. It is not a national emergency. The United States economy remains the most powerful economic engine on planet Earth by a long shot. It is not particularly close still. China has bulk, but the United States has actual power. Bulk and power, similar, but they're cousins. They're not exactly the same. The idea that these are reciprocal tariffs or responsive tariffs, the problem there, again, is if I thought these were responsive tariffs, and I think if the market thought that, they'd be a lot more sanguine. Because the question is what comes next. Is President Trump going to try to cut bilateral deals with various countries to lower the tariffs back down to zero? Or is he doing this because he just doesn't like trade deficits? This is the problem I was pointing out yesterday. That giant poster board that he was holding up that showed tariff rates for various countries on our goods, it's not true. Those were not tariff rates. They had nothing to do with tariffs. Those were trade deficits divided by imports. Meaning, the only way to get those numbers down to zero would be for those other countries to just buy more American products, regardless of whether they are poor or whether they even have tariffs on American products in the first place. It is the equivalent of you saying that you are running a deficit with your grocery store, you're running a trade deficit with your grocery store because you gave them money and they gave you goods. And the only way that you're going to achieve parity is by getting the grocery store to buy fan belts from your factory. The talking points go on. For decades, the trade status quo has allowed countries to use unfair trade practices to get ahead at the expense of hardworking Americans. And again, you want to label things that want to get rid of them. I'm using tariffs as leverage, good. Tariffs without leverage, simply as a way of quote-unquote rejiggering the global order, I don't know what you're going for, and neither do the markets, and that's why they're freaking out. The distorted trading system has caused the offshoring of our manufacturing base. Okay, the reality is, our manufacturing productivity has gone up significantly since the beginning of NAFTA in 1997. It has risen from about $1.7 trillion to $2.4 trillion, something in that neighborhood. The manufacturing base in the United States, in terms of jobs, has actually been harmed not predominantly by offshoring, but by automation. If you're talking about jobs in factories, why those are going away, the answer is robots. The answer is machinery. That's why you don't see giant assembly lines of humans doing this stuff anymore. You see robots doing this stuff. And
where was this? Was he saying this before? I feel like I was the only person on the fucking planet that was saying this. Were there other, or no, I'm sure Galloway maybe in the sane liberal dudes. Like, all of these economic problems that the Trumples have been trying to sell you are delusional. They're not real. None of these things are real. Our economic productivity has been going up. We still manufacture shit. We were a world leader in energy. And producing energy at all-time highs under Biden. Like, these were all fake problems. None of these problems were real.
Howard Lutnick, who's a big proponent of the tariff strategy over at the Commerce Department, he is saying as much. He was asked last night on Jesse Waters about reshoring manufacturing from places like Vietnam, which makes T-shirts. And here's Lutnick's answer.
Yeah, we're not going to have all factories come back. Like clothing manufacturing, that's tough to bring back. But what kind of manufacturing are you talking about returning here?
Well, you can't just give that away. See, what's going to happen is robotics are going to replace the cheap labor that we've seen all across the world. I mean,
then that's not even bringing jobs back to the United States, then. What are you even talking about? What are we even doing? What are we even doing, then?
What our factories did. They went to the cheapest labor in the whole world, slave labor, cheap labor, the worst environmental conditions, polluting the heck out of it, and then we bring back those cheap products here, and we feel good about ourselves because we don't see the pain. But the pain is in our workers. The American workers have been given the raw deal, and what's going to happen now is we're going to build factories, and we're going to train, we're going to have trade craft, we're going to do the greatest set of training ever, and our high school educated people, they're going to train to do robotics mechanics. It's kind of like a supercharged BMW mechanic.
Okay, let's just be clear about this. The robotics are one of the chief reasons for the decline in employment in the manufacturing sector. So if the idea is we bring the factories back here and then robots replace the foreign workers,
what's the
you might incrementally gain jobs. You're not going to massively gain jobs because most of the work is going to be done by the robots. Again, there are a bunch of different sort of priorities that are in argument with each other. Because if you don't do that, then the prices and all of those
in argument with each other, correct. So he's restating what I said yesterday, okay, which is true in that your big issue is forget whether or not what they're saying is true or false. Forget whether or not they're sound. They're not even internally consistent. Like, these aren't even internally consistent principles. They contradict themselves. It's just so stupid.
And services rise dramatically. Just do it with American union labor. It's going to be way more expensive for American consumers. Okay, other elements of the White House press release. The undermining of critical supply chains. That one I agree with. Again, there's good and there's bad in some of the tariff policy, but it's unclear what the rationale is. If we are talking about reshoring critical supply chains, okay, fine. But then you get elimination of export market access. The people are eliminating our ability to export to them. okay, well, they are likely to raise their tariffs on us right now, and we are starting to see that already, as we'll get to in a moment. They say that this has sold out the American middle class. I showed you yesterday the American middle class has not, in fact, been sold out. Most of the American middle class turned into the upper middle class. The decline of small towns across America. Okay, the truth, again, is that there are certain towns across America that have declined, and there are other towns across America that have risen. This is a constant throughout American history. Population movement is as old as de Tocqueville. De Tocqueville talked routinely about the idea that people would go to a place, build a town, the town would then go defunct, people would move to the next town. And that is not a wonderful thing. It's not an amazing thing. It is a reality of an economy that does not just subsidize you in the place where you are. The White House talking points continue. Under the Biden administration's watch, our trade deficit soared to $1.2 trillion in 2024. This status quo cannot continue. Okay, well, I mean, if we were just going to look at the U.S. trade deficit by year, what you will see is that the United States trade deficit was actually quite high during the Trump administration as well. So it wasn't as though it got solved under the Trump administration. And trade deficits are not, again, a good substitute for an explanation of why that's bad for the United States. Trade deficits finance virtually our entire debt load. Because let's say that we are buying more from another country than they are buying from us. They take those dollars are used as the world's reserve currency, and those dollars are very often traded for the American bonds that finance our debt. And then the talking points, again, these are the talking points distributed by the White House to allies in Congress. Gone are the days of America being taken advantage of. There's a new sheriff in town, and trade is a core issue in restoring American strength on the global stage. Again, that's nice rhetoric. I don't know what it means. President Trump is correcting long-standing trade imbalances caused by non-reciprocal trade relations by imposing tariffs to level the playing field. Again, if we're talking reciprocal, fine. But it's not clear what reciprocality means at this point, other than other countries need to buy more of our goods, even if they don't have tariffs on us. And so it's kind of a mishmash of various rationales. Now, to Steelman, what's going on here? There's the sort of Scott Bessent theory of the case, the Treasury Secretary, who, again, knows economics really well. Bessent is an excellent Treasury Secretary. The case that he has been making is a more sophisticated case, and it's laid out well by a policy analyst named Tanvi Ratna. Tanvi Ratna is quoted by the investor.
I see Trump admin order to bring back person. That's great. Okay, good job. They're ordered to bring it back. They're not going to do it. I don't care.
Well, Ackman, here's what she writes today. Trump's new tariffs aren't a trade tweak. They're the first move in a full-spectrum reset. $9.2 trillion in debt matures in 2025. Inflation lingers, alliances are shifting. One announcement just set a dozen wheels in motion. Here's what really is happening. Start with the debt. $9.2 trillion must be refinanced in 2025. If rolled into 10-year bonds, every 1 basis point drop in rates saves approximately $1 billion a year. So a 0.5% drop would save $500 billion over a decade. Lower yields free up fiscal room. Without them, core spending gets crowded out. So the basic idea here is that what we need to do is drop bond yields. So scare the crap out of people in the markets. They move their money into what they think are more secure bonds. And in doing so, they decrease the bond yields, meaning that the demand for bonds goes up. When the demand for bonds goes up, it means that you can basically refinance the American debt. People are going to buy American debt at lower interest rates. And that means that when we pay off those interest rates, it will cost us less money. So as she says, how to push yields down with sticky inflation and a cautious Fed? Manufacture uncertainty. You sweep in with tariffs, you spook the markets, you trigger a risk off. Money exits stocks, floods into long-term treasuries, a deliberate detox to cool the economy and cut refinancing costs. And then you have to cut the deficit, and this is where Elon Musk and Doge are coming in. With these savings, says Tanvi Ratna, the big economic pillar to successfully deliver on Secretary Bessent's 3-3-3 plan is to get growth up. Tariffs come in as a trigger for domestic industrial revival. The thing is, by making imports expensive, you create room for U.S. producers to step in. But here is the problem. It takes a while for American factories to scale up overnight. In the meantime, they're offering near-term relief, like, for example, tax cuts.
Remember, not only does it take a while for those factories to scale up, nobody's going to do it because nobody has any fucking idea what the business environment is, or the capital environment is going to look like 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. No one has any idea. No one has any fucking idea.
Or currency devaluation. And the idea is the tariffs might bring in additional revenue. But, as Ratna points out, this approach is not without risks. If domestic supply chains can't catch up, or if global retaliation kicks in, inflation could start rising again. If that happens, then the Fed actually raises rates, which blows a hole in the low yield plan. That's the tightrope. And, not only that, tariffs could serve as leverage to renegotiate terms in terms of military deals with other countries, bilateral deals. This is sort of, again, the strong case for the tariffs is that this is the beginning of a much more sophisticated strategy designed to essentially lower yield.
How much longer are we going to wait for the 5-dimensional chess? How much longer are we waiting to see what the big plan is, and before we realize there isn't one? Like, if these guys were Harry Potter, they would watch themselves just get fully murdered by the Dementors, thinking that, like, oh no, my dad is coming, I'm sure. It was him that cast it, and then they just sit there and they watch themselves die, and then it ends at, was that book 6? I don't even remember which book it was, but, like, it's just so fucking stupid. Oh my god.
Yields on bonds that we don't have to pay back as much interest on our national debt, and set the stage for reciprocal trade deals that are going to lower tariffs on both sides. If that's the plan, somebody ought to spell it out. Okay, again, one of the big problems here is that they're not spelling out exactly what they want to do, what President Trump's plan is. Radna sums this up well. She says, if it works, it's a defining success. That is more under control, manufacturing reborn, global leverage restored, Trumpism vindicated in 2026. If it fails, you get inflation, retaliation, lost midterms, and strategic drift. So that seems like a pretty good analysis of the case. Which one do you think is more likely? And the problem, of course, is that with total uncertainty, the chances of things like inflation go up.
Losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. You're gonna, like, were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs you nothing. In fact, it builds quite a bit of character. In fact, you learn a lot of lessons, actually. But
We're building so much character right now.
Costs you everything. Losing your country costs you everything.
Anyone else feeling their character being built?
The government can print more money, and it will. Sadly, that's just the reality. Fugazi, it's Fugazi. It's just that there's a boom and a bust every 10 years, and it's been that way since the invention of modern markets in the 1600s. The Dutch crash of 1649. You ever heard of it? It's just the way that it works. It's the way that, like, monetary policy has always worked. There's going to be ups and downs, especially as the table goes reset. If you lose the character of your country, your town gets hollowed out. See that photo of that town? Your town gets hollowed out, and your entire neighborhood gets addicted to opioids, and your steel mill shuts down, and your farmers can't grow crops, and there's no more cattle ranchers, there's no more cowboys, there's no more fishers, there's no more workers, and we're completely and totally dependent upon slave labor peasants across Asia to make every good, service, and pharmaceutical, then you've actually lost your country, and then we are the slaves. There you go.
Like, every single thing the Trump admin says, or all of these, like, dick sucks say about the financial markets, sounds like a Wall Street's Bets shit post.
This is West Virginia. And it's so sad that this was a factory that provided thousands of honest, good-hearted, steel-working jobs for our fellow countrymen.
That's what you want to go back to? Is steel working?
Ripped. The guts of it got ripped out and shipped by people like Mitch McConnell so that they could make a couple extra points in their portfolio to get stock swaps with Pan-Asian countries. And they sold out their countrymen, and I call that traitorism, actually. I think that's the definition of a traitor. You can lose money. You can lose points in your portfolio. It costs you absolutely nothing. You won't miss them when you're dead. Nobody ever had their...
The real scary thing... I don't understand too much about the Hitlerization of the economy, but the real scary thing is that I'm not actually that afraid of it because I think Trump is so fucking retarded, but he could stumble into it, is you're getting to the point to where the real fascism starts. And the real fascism is this weird hybrid, like this state capitalism or state privatization, where what happens is companies are failing, tariffs are too high to sustain anything meaningful, nobody knows what's going to happen, but then you have the president who can now come in and start to pick winners and losers and decide which companies the state will officially say, and to some extent, this has already happened a little bit, by CEOs having to go to Trump and beg him for reprieve from tariffs and beg him to not tariff their particular company, their particular industry. But I don't know if we'll actually go to that point because Trump is so fucking retarded, but I mean, he could stumble into that point pretty naturally.
Net worth carved onto their tombstone. Doesn't matter.
With other countries retaliating. Other countries have a say here in how this goes. If those other countries come on bended knee to President Trump and offer him a bunch of concessions, then okay. But the administration isn't really being clear what it is looking for right now. So the administration is sending some mixed signals. On the one hand, President Trump is now suggesting that this is all prelude to negotiations, which, okay, fine. I mean,
what are we
hopefully
negotiating?
You get some amazing negotiations out of this. There's some early indicators that maybe you will. Javier Milei is already attempting to make a deal with President Trump. Even Netanyahu in Israel is attempting to make a deal with President Trump pretty obviously. Here's President Trump saying everybody's calling him.
And those tariffs have come in, and every country's called us. That's the beauty
phone call president. The phone call president.
Some of these countries, most of these countries, to do us a favor, they would have said, no, now they'll do anything for us. But we have tariffs, they've been set, and it's going to make our country very rich.
Are you open to deals with these countries if they're calling you?
Well, it depends. If somebody said that we're going to give you something that's so phenomenal, as long as they're giving us something that's good.
Okay, so maybe this is deal making, prelude to deal making, which is kind of what I suggested yesterday. That's the probable path that this is on, so it's not going to be quite as bad as advertised.
This was always the argument from the race realists, right? That even if the economy completely falls apart, the country should have white identity. Except Trump isn't a neo-Nazi. So we don't even get to say that. I can't even go to sleep thinking like, well, at least I'm white, so I've got like a neo-Nazi fascist president. It's like, I don't even know, like it's bad for everybody. Trump's he's not even cool enough to be a neo-Nazi. He's just a hater. He's an open hater of fucking everybody. He hates everybody. It's not going to be like white people are making out great from this. It's not going to be like the Aryans. It's just everybody's getting fucked. It's just everybody.
Unless they just keep sticking with it. But meanwhile, again, the market does not like mixed signals. Peter Navarro, the president's trade advisor, was saying, no negotiations. It's not a negotiation. Guys, get on message.
This is not a negotiation, Jesse. This is a national emergency associated with chronic and massive trade deficits that are brought about by higher tariffs and higher non-tariff barriers that take our jobs.
Nice talking points. Higher tariff and non-tariff barriers. Remember to always say tariff and non-tariff barriers, right? Why did these dumb fucks even publish the formula they used? I'm so curious why they even published it. If their talking point was going to tell them they had to lie about it.
Are factories that lead to massive trade deficits that result in massive transfers of wealth into foreign hands that jeopardize our manufacturing base and defense industrial base.
So it's not a negotiation, but maybe it is a negotiation. Well, how are countries to know? Because if they think that it's not a negotiation, they're immediately going to reshift their trade relationships toward, wait for it, China. In the mixed signals are part of the problem.
They didn't even wait for it that long.
Going to reshift their trade relationships toward, wait for it, China. In the mixed signals are part of the problem. The messaging is part of the problem. You know, President Trump is usually pretty open about what exactly he is looking for. And so far, he has not been saying that he's looking for off-ramps with all of these countries. His negotiation is possible, but countries that have already offered an off-ramp. Again, I use Israel as the key example here because they actually did it. They literally just said 0 tariffs. And then they got hit with a 17% tariff. Well, a lot remains unclear, but there is something that should be clear to you. You need better so you can find the employee issues behind the scenes details. Also, you know what's funny? Well, when I started Daily Wire, I thought the hard part would be creating the awesome content. It turns out the actual pain in the butt is the hiring, HR policies, employee issues, behind-the-scenes stuff. That's what eats up your time. I know I'm not alone. When you're a business owner, every second of your time is incredibly valuable. So don't waste your energy and risk losing money dealing with time-sucking payroll issues and HR infractions. Focus on what matters most, running your business with help from Bambi. Here's what makes Bambi different. They give you access to your very own dedicated HR manager at a fraction of what it costs to employ someone full-time. And get this, Bambi costs just $29 a month, while you have 10, 75, and 100 employees. If I had Bambi when I was first building this team, it would have saved me a lot of time, a lot of headaches. Instead of getting bogged down with paperwork and compliance issues, we could have focused on growing the show, connecting with the audience even more than we did. Month-to-month, no are not in the business. Well, the administration, again, is I think, trying to, let's put it this way, they're drawing on heavy political capital here. They're basically saying, trust us. It's trust us. Well, markets are not in the business of trust us. Markets are in the business of trying to take in the best available information and then spit out what people think is going to happen next. President Trump, he says that he is confident the markets are going to boom. The question is when. Right? If it's not soon, that's going to be a problem.
We have $6 or $7 trillion coming into our country, and we've never seen anything like it. The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see is there any way they can make a deal. They've taken advantage of us for many, many years. For many years, we've been at the wrong side of the ball, and I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be unbelievable.
Okay, well, okay, that's the case. And then that is the case that Caroline Leavitt was making yesterday at the White House. She said that there was not going to be pain incurred. Again, you're getting mixed signals here. There's Caroline Leavitt saying no pain. Right, so there are two messages. You need pain in order to get long-term gain, and then there's there will be no pain message, and they're kind of in conflict.
This won't be painful at all for American people and consumers, Caroline? It's going to be, there's not going to be any pain for American-owned companies and American workers because their jobs are going to come back home. And again, as for prices, President Trump is working on tax cuts to put more money back into the pockets of Americans.
Okay, meanwhile, J.D. Vance is saying we're not going to be able to fix things overnight. Obviously, by the way, American workers are also American consumers. They're the same. You have a job and you also consume things. Here's the vice president.
What I'd ask folks to appreciate here is that we are not going to fix things overnight. Joe Biden left us, this is not an exaggeration, Lawrence, with the largest peacetime debt and deficit in the history of the United States of America, with sky-high interest rates. You don't fix that stuff overnight.
God, dude, there's just so much I want to say.
We know people are struggling. We're as quickly as we can to fix what was left to us, but it's not going to happen immediately.
Okay, well, this is a pretty big gamble here. I mean, not immediate. American politics works in terms of immediacy. The stock market continued to tank today. People are looking at that, and they are not sanguine about it. Is hiring going to be up this month based on these sort of expectations of what could come next or fear of what's going to come next? And politicians, by the way, work on 2-year cycles. They work on 18-month cycles, increasingly. A multiplicity of Republican senators have now come out and said, listen, we don't like this very much. It has not been spelled out to us why this is necessary. The strategy has not been explained to us. Well, what's the deal? So Senator Rand Paul, who of course is a free market libertarian on this sort of stuff, he said this is clearly a tax.
Taxation without representation is tyranny, bellowed James Otis. In the days and weeks and years leading up to the American Revolution, it was non-negotiable. This was what sparked the revolution. And yet today we are here before the Senate because one person in our country wishes to raise taxes.
The king.
Well, this is contrary to everything our country was founded upon. One person is not allowed to raise taxes. The Constitution forbids it.
Okay, but you say, well, Rand Paul is always taking this sort of contra position whenever it comes to government action. He's sort of out there on his own, except he's not. So, for example, Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas, who's been a pretty solid Trump ally, here he was saying this is a risky thing that is happening here.
The consequences are yet to be.
It's like like, where is the line? There is no line? If Trump were to start rounding people up tomorrow, would the Republicans are finally waking up a little bit. It's not enough to be retrospective on this. There have to be consequences, electorally and legally. Like, some of these people need to go to jail. They need to be charged with crimes. That J6 shit needs to come the fuck back. And some of these people have to go away. Like, it's just...
to be fully known, but I would have thought they would have been less dramatic, less significant, and more targeted. And I think we ought to be focused on our economic adversaries and be less damaging to our economic allies.
Yeah, you think?
Senator Ted Cruz, who's been a really solid Trump ally ever since he lost the primaries in 2016 to President Trump. He's been on the Trump bandwagon since then, basically. Here's Ted Cruz.
Oh yeah, when man, what did Trump say? I'm trying to remember. He actually called his
I feel that I am a conservative. Now, I also feel I'm...
Also, for the people that say that Trump hasn't gone senile or anything else, okay, this is what Trump looked like 9 years ago, all right?
I feel that I am a conservative. Now, I also feel I'm a common sense conservative because some of the views I don't agree with. And I think a lot of people agree with me, obviously, based on what's happening.
Flexibility is a good thing, but you shouldn't be flexible on core principles. I like Donald. He is an amazing entertainer. But his policies for most of his life...
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
For most of his life, his policies have been very, very liberal. For most of his life, he has described himself as very pro-choice and as a supporter of partial birth abortion. Right now, today, as a candidate, he supports federal taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood. I disagree with him on that. That's a matter of principle, and I'll tell you...
You are the single biggest liar. You probably are worse than Jeb Bush. You are the single biggest liar. All right. This guy lied. Let me just tell you. This guy lied about Ben Carson when he took votes away from Ben Carson in Iowa. And he just continued. And today, we had robocalls saying Donald Trump is not going to run in South Carolina, where I'm leading by a lot. I'm not going to run. Vote for Ted Cruz. This is the same thing he did to Ben Carson. This guy will say anything. nasty guy. Now I know why he doesn't have one endorsement from any of his colleagues.
All right, John, I get to
Senator, pick
respond.
from the buffet there.
He's a nasty guy.
Well, I will say, I will say it is fairly remarkable.
After saying that you were going to spill the beans about Heidi Cruz, you retweeted an unflattering picture of her next to a picture of your wife.
I thought it was a nice picture of Heidi. I thought it was fine.
Come on.
I thought it was fine. She's a pretty woman.
You're running for president of the United States.
Excuse me. I didn't start it. I didn't start it.
But, sir, with all due respect, that's the argument of a 5-year-old.
I didn't start it. No, it's not the.
Yeah,
no, it's
the argument of a 5-year-old is he started
You would say that. That's the problem with our country.
Every parent knows a kid who says he started
Excuse me. No. That's the problem. Exactly that thinking is the problem this country has. I did not start this. He sent out a picture, and he knew very well it was a picture.
He didn't send out a picture.
It was
an
a picture of a cover story. Anderson.
Super PAC.
It was a cover story of a picture taken by Antoine Verglas, one of the great photographers of the world, by the way. My wife was a very successful model, like one of the most. It was a picture for the cover of GQ, which is a very good magazine.
This wasn't even it wasn't even a pro Cruz super PAC. It was an anti-Trump super PAC.
They were Romney people. Romney is, very embarrassed that he did so badly 4 years ago. The guy choked like a dog and he lost an election.
He sent it out?
No, everybody knows he sent it out. He knew the people in the super PAC. He knew that. I would be willing to bet he wrote the phrase. This is. Would you like to have this as your first lady? And a lot of people said yes, actually.
So Donald Trump and Cruz are going back and forth on each other's wives. It was just funny because Cruz is a full-on Trump dick rider now, but it was so funny during the primaries. He was so tough on him. He was like,
I have to say, seeing him go deeper and deeper to the gutter, it's not easy to tick me off. I don't get angry often. But you mess with my wife, you mess with my kids, that'll do it every time. Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone.
and then he was phone banking for him. How recent is this? 1 day ago. Oh, God. I don't know if I can do it, actually.
Cruz saying, well, actually, this is a tax on consumers. Because it is.
If the result is our trading partners jack up their tariffs and we have high tariffs everywhere, I think that is a bad outcome for America. Tariffs are a tax on consumers, and I'm not a fan of jacking up taxes on American consumers. So my hope is these tariffs are short-lived and they serve as leverage to lower tariffs across the globe.
Okay, so again, I think that's everybody's hope in the Senate. What's actually going to happen in Congress? So the Senate's a different story. Senators they can say what they want because they've already moved to basically put limitations. Chuck Grassley put forward a bill that says if there's no congressional renewal of this in 60 days, this stuff should just go away. But the House of Representatives...
60 days of the most insane tariffs in the history of the world.
Have to sign on. There's a massive misalignment of incentives in the House of Representatives. Let's say that this tariff regime does not go particularly well. And let's say that President Trump is willing, because he's not up for re-elect, let's say that he's willing to do the thing. House Republicans are going to be split. Many House Republicans are going to say, listen, I'm going to lose my seat in the next election cycle because of this deliberately created tariff policy. So I don't like this very much. But if Speaker Johnson were to step in and try to stop the tariff policy, there would undoubtedly be...
Johnson? He's like a reverse worm tongue. Is that the name of the dude who... It's like that, except the king is like poisoning his followers. My God, that's funny.
Be a Trumpist insurrection inside the Republican caucus to overthrow him, and you'd get another speaker fight.
That's funny.
So basically, Trump better be right, is what I got to say here. Like either they better move off of this pretty quickly with bilateral trade deals, or he better be right. The problem here, the real problem here, is that other countries have a say, and many of those other countries not only don't like President Trump, they are not particularly fond of the United States these days. And that does not just mean China. China, of course, was going to retaliate. China has now put forward a 34% tariff on American products, a direct response to President Trump's 34% tariff on China. Listen, I have no problem with tariffing China. I think that a trade war with China, so long as we are broadening and opening our trade relationships with everybody else, isolating China, economically speaking, is actually not a terrible thing. But the reason that China is doing that is because China is now stepping into the breach with our allies. This is why we should not be treating Canada the way we treat China. We should not be treating the EU.
Thank you. Yeah. I need some kind of official show. These guys are ripping all my talking points, but they're coming a month late. We needed this a month ago. You need to be prospective, not retrospective. It doesn't count if you can say it after the fact.
The way we treat China. Some of these places are allies of the United States, and some of these places are enemies of the United States. But in a lot of these countries that are led by people who don't like President Trump very much, they are perfectly willing to make time with the Chinese. I take, for example, Canada. It is of great annoyance to me that Pierre Poilievre, who's a terrific candidate for the Conservative Party, is now lagging in the polls thanks to this trade war that President Trump declared on Canada. And Mark Carney, who is the definition of a global elite. He's the definition of a globalist elite.
Yeah, he
this
is.
guy who's put in place by Justin Trudeau's party. He's out there excited as all hell about the trade war.
Can I just be honest? Me, okay? I can't believe, because dude, I was such a conservative in high school, okay? And we all hated the French after 9/11. I think it's because the French like didn't want to go to Iraq or something. Everybody hated the French, me included, okay? But as I've gotten older, okay, so I'm pretty sure like almost every country in Europe has like a pretty rich military history where at some point, you know, somebody was successful. Like almost every European country had like territories and shit. It's like, okay. Macron just seems like he just seems awesome.